Have you ever noticed that sometimes it feels like you're growing so fast that the people around you can no longer recognize you? It's as if the version of you they knew is fading away, and now you're becoming someone completely new. This can be confusing, both for you and for those who closely observe you. Perhaps the people who interact with you expect you to remain the same person, reacting in the same way, stuck in the same behavioral patterns. However, you feel like you're breaking through these barriers, growing in ways you might not even be able to explain. If you look back at your own past, you might recognize a series of relationships, situations, or behaviors that once seemed normal, but now no longer make sense. It's as if a part of you is disconnecting from those old ways of living, and you find yourself in a process of transformation that few can follow. This is the moment when many start to feel uncomfortable. They look at you and can't understand why you've changed so much. You may even feel that the people around you want to keep you trapped in your old identity. But the truth is, you no longer belong in those places, those relationships, or even those mindsets. Think of a time when you decided to do something different for your well-being. Maybe it was leaving a toxic relationship, changing how you think about your career, or even deciding to take a step toward a dream you've kept in your heart. The people around you may have questioned your decisions, and some may have even distanced themselves, unable to keep up with your evolution. This is natural. Often your growth makes people uncomfortable because they aren't ready to deal with their own changes. They want you to stay the same, stuck in the same cycles, because that's what they know. This change you're going through can be both internal and external. Maybe on the outside, things still seem the same, but on the inside, you feel a profound transformation. Your way of thinking is changing, your understanding of life, of yourself, and even of your faith is expanding. And just as you become unrecognizable to others, you might be becoming unrecognizable to yourself. Is that scary? Maybe. But it's also incredibly exciting. The unknown is where growth happens. Have you ever felt this way? As if you're in the middle of a transition where, on one hand, the old you is still present, but on the other, a new version of yourself is emerging. It's like learning to walk again, and that takes courage. Often, the first step on this path is a lonely one. Few people will understand your journey, and many won't be willing to give you the space you need to make mistakes and learn from them. But you don't need their approval. What really matters is that you're allowing yourself to grow and evolve. What makes this process even more challenging is that, many times, the people around you won't give you the support you need. They may watch from a distance, waiting for you to fail. Some may even lurk, ready to point fingers when something goes wrong. But here's something you need to understand. Your success doesn't depend on the opinions of others. Even if you make mistakes, even if you stumble along the way, those difficult moments are part of your growth. And contrary to what others might think, it's in those moments that you become stronger. Remember a time when things didn't go as planned. Maybe it was a situation at work, or a family problem where you felt like you had hit rock bottom. How did you feel at that moment? It was probably difficult to see a way out. But today, looking back, you realize that those challenges were necessary to shape you into the person you are becoming. And that is exactly what's happening now. You are in the midst of a journey of transformation, and just like gold is refined by fire, you are being shaped by these experiences. And here's the good news. You don't have to do everything alone. Every step you take, even if it seems small, is bringing you closer to the person you were created to be. And even if some people can't understand this, you are growing. One of the great truths about the process of personal transformation is that it isn't always understood by those around us. They may not realize it, but often their discomfort with your growth comes from a place of fear and insecurity. They may see you achieving something they never had the courage to pursue, or they might be dealing with the idea that the old you no longer exists. This can be painful for them, but it's a reflection of their own resistance to change. When you decide to change, you break expectations, patterns, and cycles that have been established for a long time. Imagine a tree growing in the middle of a dense forest. As it expands, its roots and branches take up more space, pushing against what was around it. In the same way, your growth forces those around you to deal with the new reality. You are no longer the person they thought they knew. And that's okay. This is a necessary part of the process. An example that might resonate with you is when someone decides to break off a friendship or relationship that no longer reflects who they become. Perhaps you've been through this. That moment when you realized that certain people were no longer in tune with your journey. And even though you knew this disconnection would be painful, you made the decision to move on, to prioritize your emotional and spiritual well-being. Those people may have been resentful or confused, but it was a necessary choice for your growth. Now, think about how that decision impacted your life. Maybe it was painful at first, but slowly you began to feel the relief of being surrounded by people who truly support you and celebrate who you're becoming. That's the power of aligning with your purpose. The growth journey isn't always comfortable, but it is liberating. Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a repetitive cycle, where the same things kept happening, and it seemed like there was no way out? Many of us go through this at different stages in life. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or even in personal issues, there are moments when we feel trapped. But the truth is, these cycles only continue as long as we allow them to. When we decide to break the pattern, when we consciously choose to change, transformation begins. One of the most powerful things you can do is recognize that, even though the process of change can be lonely, it is necessary to achieve fulfillment. Sometimes, people won't understand the choices you make. But remember, you are not living to please others. You are living to fulfill the purpose that has been placed in your heart. How many times have you felt that something greater was calling you? That inner voice that pushes you to follow a different path, even though you don't yet know exactly where it will lead. That is awakening. And at first, it might seem frightening. You might wonder if you're making the right choice, if you're on the right path. But awakening isn't about having all the answers immediately. It's about trusting the process, knowing that, along the journey, the answers will come. I remember a time when a friend shared his experience of changing careers. He had worked for years in a stable job, but without meaning. For a long time, he felt a growing dissatisfaction, as if something was missing. Eventually, he made the decision to leave the job and pursue a new passion. At first, many people around him were confused or even criticized the choice, saying it was an unnecessary risk. But he knew that was the only way to truly live according to his purpose. Today, he feels more fulfilled than ever. This story is an example of how sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that free us the most. Have you ever gone through something similar? That moment when, even with the fear of the unknown, you knew you had to move forward? That is the true essence of transformation. The important thing to understand is that when you decide to change, not everyone around you will keep up with the pace. Some people will resist, others will criticize, and some simply won't understand. But that shouldn't stop you. This is the moment to embrace your truth and continue growing, even if it means leaving some people and situations behind. You are here for something much greater. And as you walk this path of discovery, Remember that every step you take is bringing you closer to who you were created to be. Sometimes the path may seem uncertain, but true transformation happens when you keep moving forward, even without having all the answers. One thing that often happens during this process of transformation is that, as you grow, the people who used to be around you may start to feel a kind of discomfort or even envy. They wonder how you've managed to change so much in such a short time. And what's interesting is that many times, these same people prefer to cling to an old version of you, a version that no longer exists. They can't handle the fact that you're evolving, and that unsettles them. Perhaps you've been through this, that moment when close people begin to treat you differently, not because of something you've done to them directly, but simply because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. I remember hearing someone share a similar story. He was on a journey of self-discovery, seeking to improve his physical and emotional health, and over time, the changes became visible to everyone around. However, instead of receiving support, he faced resistance. Friends and family made sarcastic comments, trying to downplay his achievements as if his growth were a personal affront. Have you ever gone through something like this? When you decide to focus on your own well-being, on your own evolution, it often challenges the beliefs of the people around you. They might start to wonder why they aren't changing too, and that makes them uncomfortable. But the truth is, your growth is not a threat to anyone. In reality, it's an invitation. An invitation for them to also awaken to their own abilities and possibilities. Now, let's reflect on how these changes manifest. Maybe you've started to value your time more, to be more careful about the people you surround yourself with. Perhaps you've decided to dedicate more time to activities that nurture your soul, whether it's meditation, exercise, reading, or simply moments of silence with yourself. These small choices begin to shape a new version of you, a version that is more aligned with your true desires and purposes. And here's something very powerful. When you start prioritizing yourself, people notice. And that bothers them. It may seem like something so simple, but the act of taking care of yourself, of putting your needs first, can be something that others around you have never had the courage to do. And because of that, they may react with criticism or even hostility. But this isn't about you. It's about them. When people see you transform, they are forced to look at the areas of their own life that they are neglecting. And not everyone is ready to do that. A classic example of this is when someone decides to adopt healthier habits. Maybe you decided to change your diet, start exercising regularly, or even cut certain vices from your life. And instead of receiving support from those around you, you might notice that some start making jokes, trying to discourage you, saying things like, "You won't be able to keep this up," or "Why put in so much effort?" This happens because, by seeing you make these decisions, they feel an internal pressure to change as well. But since not everyone is ready for that, it's easier for them to try and pull you back into the old pattern than to make the effort to improve themselves. Perhaps this is an experience you've already lived through. Or maybe you're going through it now. But know that this is a natural phase of your growth. The more you evolve, the more it becomes evident who is truly by your side and who is just comfortable with the old version of you. Now, let's reflect on the issue of self-judgment. During this journey of transformation, you might at times question whether you're on the right path, especially when you face resistance from those close to you. That inner doubt might even arise. Am I being selfish for prioritizing myself? Am I leaving people behind? But here's the truth. Prioritizing your growth is not selfish, it's a necessity. To make a difference in the world, you first need to be at peace with yourself. Think of it like being on an airplane. When the safety instructions are given, The first thing they say is, "Put your oxygen mask on first, before helping others." This isn't a selfish attitude. It's a smart one. You can't help anyone if you're not in a state of fullness and balance. Perhaps at some point, you felt guilty for putting your own needs first. You might have said no to certain people or situations, and that caused discomfort. But remember, the no you say to others is often the yes you are saying to yourself. And by doing so, you are strengthening yourself so that you can truly be present and help when necessary. And along this journey, it's important to be patient with yourself. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. Just as a plant needs time to grow, your evolution process also requires time. There will be days when you feel on top of the world, full of energy and confidence. And there will be other days when you question yourself, feel tired and maybe even discouraged. But all of this is part of the journey. Think about any growth process, whether physical, mental, or spiritual. All of them involve phases of expansion and contraction. Just as muscles need rest to strengthen after intense exercise, your soul also needs moments of pause. And it's okay to have those moments. Don't rush. Don't pressure yourself to be ready all the time. True transformation happens when you allow the process to unfold at its own pace. One thing that often happens during this transformation process is that as you grow, the people who used to be around you may start to feel a kind of discomfort or even envy. They wonder how you've managed to change so much in such a short time. And interestingly, these same people often prefer to cling to an old version of you, a version that no longer exists. They can't handle the fact that you are evolving, and that unsettles them. Perhaps you've experienced this. That moment when people close to you begin treating you differently, not because of anything you've done to them directly, but simply because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. I remember hearing a similar story. He was on a path of self-discovery, seeking to improve his physical and emotional health, and over time, the changes became visible to everyone around him. However, instead of receiving support, he faced resistance. Friends and family made sarcastic comments, trying to downplay his achievements, as if his growth were a personal affront. Have you ever gone through something like this? When you decide to focus on your own well-being, on your own evolution, it often challenges the beliefs of those around you. They might begin to wonder why they aren't changing too, and that makes them uncomfortable. But the truth is, your growth is not a threat to anyone. In reality, it's an invitation for them to awaken to their own abilities and possibilities as well. Now, let's reflect on how these changes manifest. Perhaps you've started to value your time more, choosing more carefully the people you surround yourself with. Maybe you've decided to dedicate more time to activities that nurture your soul, whether through meditation, exercise, reading, or simply moments of silence with yourself. These small choices begin to shape a new version of you, a version that is more aligned with your true desires and purposes. And here's something very powerful. When you begin to prioritize yourself, people notice. And that bothers them. It may seem like something so simple, but the act of taking care of yourself, of putting your needs first, can be something others around you have never had the courage to do. And because of this, they might react with criticism or even hostility. But this is not about you. It's about them. When people see you transforming, they are forced to look at the areas of their own life that they have been neglecting. And not everyone is ready to do that. A classic example of this is when someone decides to adopt healthier habits. Maybe you decided to change your diet, start exercising regularly, or even cut certain vices from your life. And instead of receiving support from those around you, you may notice that some start to make jokes. trying to discourage you, saying things like, "You won't be able to keep this up," or "Why all the effort?" This happens because, by seeing you make these decisions, they feel internal pressure to change as well. But since not everyone is ready for that, it's easier for them to try and pull you back into the old pattern than to make the effort to improve. Maybe this is an experience you've already lived through. Or perhaps you are going through it now, but know that this is a natural phase of your growth. The more you evolve, the clearer it becomes who is truly by your side and who is simply comfortable with the old version of you. Now let's reflect on the issue of self-judgment. During this journey of transformation, you might sometimes question whether you're on the right path, especially when you face resistance from people close to you. That inner doubt might even arise. Am I being selfish for prioritizing myself? Am I leaving people behind? But here's the truth. Prioritizing your growth isn't selfish. It's a necessity. To make a difference in the world, you first need to be at peace with yourself. Think of it like being on an airplane. When the safety instructions are given, the first thing they say is, "Put your oxygen mask on first before helping others." This isn't a selfish attitude. It's a smart one. You can't help anyone if you're not in a state of fullness and balance. Perhaps at some point, you felt guilty for putting your own needs first. You might have said no to certain people or situations, and that caused discomfort. But remember, that no you say to others is often the yes you are saying to yourself. And by doing so, you are strengthening yourself so that you can truly be present and help when necessary. Think about any growth process, whether physical, mental, or spiritual. All of them involve phases of expansion and contraction. Just as muscles need rest to strengthen after intense training, your soul also needs moments of pause. And it's okay to have those moments. Don't rush. Don't pressure yourself to always be ready. True transformation happens when you allow the process to occur at its own pace. As you continue on this journey of transformation, you'll also begin to notice something interesting. Your energy will start attracting new people into your life. People who are aligned with your new way of living, who respect and understand your growth. You'll notice that as you let go of relationships that no longer serve you, others, much more significant, will start to appear. Think of a garden. For new plants to grow, it's necessary to remove the weeds that are choking the soil. In the same way, when you distance yourself from people and situations that drain your energy, you create space for new connections to blossom. And these new connections are important because they will support you on your journey, motivate you to keep growing, and inspire you to explore new possibilities. I'll give you an example of something that happens frequently. When you start valuing yourself more, when you start setting boundaries and saying no to what no longer serves you, the right people begin to appear. This can happen in any area of your life, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or even in the workplace. Perhaps you've noticed that as you distanced yourself from toxic relationships or situations that brought you stress, new opportunities began to emerge. It may be that people with a more positive mindset, aligned with your vision of life, started showing up, almost as if the universe was rewarding you for making the right choices. And here's a fundamental truth. You attract what reflects who you are becoming. When you start vibrating at a higher frequency, a frequency of self-confidence, purpose, and self-love, you begin to attract people and situations into your life that are in harmony with this new vibration. This is a natural process. It's as if, by adjusting your internal tuning, you start picking up new signals, new opportunities, and new relationships. Have you experienced this? Perhaps there was a moment when, after making an important decision, people you never expected began to appear, offering support, opportunities, or even new friendships. These are the invisible rewards of following the path of transformation. And just as these new people start to appear, many of the old ones simply can no longer be a part of your life. Not because you hate them or want distance, but because their frequency no longer aligns with yours. Now, this may be a little painful at first. Letting go of long-time friendships, or even family members who have always been around, can be a challenge. But understand that this is part of the process of evolution. Not everyone will be ready to accompany you on this journey, and that's okay. You don't need to feel guilty about it. What matters is that you're following the path that's been laid out for you. Here's a common example. Imagine someone who decides to change careers, pursuing something that truly makes them happy and fulfilled. At first, their friends and family might not understand this change. They might criticize and question the decision. After all, change is always viewed with suspicion by those who are accustomed to the status quo. But over time, this person begins to stand out, to thrive in their new choice. And eventually, new people who share the same vision and purpose begin to appear, bringing new opportunities and new ways to grow. This process is not immediate. Just like any significant change, it takes time. But as you remain true to your purpose and choices, the rewards begin to manifest. And suddenly, you find yourself surrounded by people who truly understand, support, and encourage you to keep evolving. Let's talk about an area of life that frequently undergoes significant transformation: relationships. As you grow, your perspective on relationships also changes. Perhaps in the past, you accepted less than you deserved, or you kept people around out of fear of being alone. But as you evolve, you realize that you deserve to be surrounded by people who respect you, who love you for who you are, and who encourage you to always be your best self. Think of a romantic relationship, for example. Perhaps you were stuck with someone who didn't value you, someone who made you feel less than you are. But at some point, you awakened to the truth that you deserved more. And by taking that first step toward self-love, by deciding that you deserve someone who truly loves you, something began to change. It may have been difficult at first, but as you distanced yourself from that relationship, you began to make space for something new. Perhaps you met someone who sees you differently, someone who truly appreciates who you're becoming. Or maybe you learned to value your own company, discovering that you can be happy on your own before being with someone else. This is a significant realization. Understanding that self-love is the foundation of all relationships. When you love yourself, when you respect yourself, and when you put your own needs first, you automatically attract people who will do the same. And at the same time, those who are not aligned with this new version of you begin to drift away. And that's natural. It's part of the growth process. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is changing. And I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave your comment below saying, "I'm ready to shine." Your participation is important, and together we can share this journey of transformation. Now think for a moment. Look at everything you've already overcome until today. Every obstacle, every moment of pain, none of it was by chance. You are being prepared for something bigger, something that goes beyond what many can understand. And yes, it can be frustrating when the people around you don't see what's happening inside you. They may not realize the strength that's growing in your heart, the light that's about to shine with more intensity. But the truth is this: it doesn't matter what others see or understand. What matters is that you know. You know that the battles you've faced so far have only served to strengthen you, to prepare you for the next level. And that, my dear, is what sets you apart. While others choose to remain stagnant, you chose to grow. And as you grow, yes, some people will distance themselves. They won't understand the new you, but that's part of the journey. Every step you take to become the person you were born to be, is a step that distances you from what used to hold you back. And that is liberating. Every day you are becoming someone stronger, more aware of who you truly are. So the question is, are you ready to accept this new version of yourself? Are you ready to embrace growth, even if it means leaving behind what no longer serves you? Because, my dear, you weren't made to stay where you are. You were made to shine, and the world is waiting to see that light. Every decision you make to elevate yourself, to distance yourself from voices that discourage you, is an affirmation of your inner strength. And that strength is what will guide you from here on out. Yes, you are becoming unrecognizable to many, but you are becoming the truest version of who you really are. So keep going. Keep believing in yourself. Keep moving forward with courage. And remember, you were made to be a light in this world. And that light, your light, is unique. No one can extinguish it. Leave your comment below, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Your journey is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.